United States Olympic Committee voted to boycott the Summer Olympic Games in Moscow.
In 1979, Afghanistan was under a military coup, and the Soviet Union, under new leadership, had plans on westernizing the majority Muslim nation. When the Soviet Union invaded Afghanistan in 1979, the international community condemned the actions. In early 1980, the movement towards boycotting the Games gained popularity. On January 14, 1980, the Carter administration set a deadline by which the Soviet Union must pull out of Afghanistan or face the consequences, including an international boycott of the game. When the deadline passed a month later, without any change in the situation, Carter pushed U.S. allies to pull their Olympic teams.
Soviet troops were all over the place in Afghanistan today.
The boycott happened simply because Jimmy Carter wanted to use it as power slash a way or a bargaining tool to get Russia not to do what it was doing in Afghanistan.
I have notified the Olympic Committee that with Soviet invading forces in Afghanistan, neither the American people nor I will support sending an Olympic team to Moscow.
Politically, when swimming, and all the sports back then were nonprofit, no money was being made, athletes didn't receive any money, and he basically stole from us what we had worked so hard for. And so, the choice, my choice, what worked for me was to march on Washington, and then later on Jimmy Carter's house. We all went and had a sit-in around his house.
As we meet today, the lesson of the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan still waits to be drawn. History holds its breath, for what is at stake is no less than the future security of the civilized world.
Do you think the team that would have been put together in 1980 would have had that dominant advantage over other countries, or were other countries also competitive?
I think we still would have dominated. I think our weakest point was breaststroke.
Yeah.
But, we had great butterflyers, great freestylers, good backstrokers. The relays that we can put together will always dominate. So yeah, it would have been dominating. It would have been a dominating male and female Olympics.
The Carter administration hopes that there will be a snowballing effect now that the U.S. Olympic Committee has decided not to go to Moscow, and that most of the nations of the free world will also decide not to send teams to the 1980 Summer Olympics.
Yeah, so if you would compare that to 1980, like if athletes had been that way then, where like they have their Speedo contract or their TYR contract to fund their expenses.
I don't. I think if enough money's involved, the politicians will lean towards that money.
Yeah.
There was no money loss for us to boycott the Olympics. Then when they boycotted our Olympics, well, we still filled the Olympics. The people still came to watch. They still filled the hotels. All that kind of stuff still happened. You just didn't have athletes from 5 or 6 different countries that boycotted us because we boycotted them. So the money wasn't affected really, at all. It was so, and you only had a couple TV stations carrying it. You got hundreds now. Every country has TV. Yeah, the online stuff and all the social media that happens about the Olympics nowadays, and the blogs that people will start, and then they make money from having blogs about the Olympics and what's going on, and it's crazy. It's at the time I was really, really mad, but over the years I've learned to deal with that. And it's like, okay, I can't control what happened. All I can do is try to my best to understand it, deal with decisions that I had no control over, and then take that, and just take my life from that starting point is what I had to do. So the focus went back, instead of being a student athlete, my focus went back to just being a student.
You can look anywhere around the globe and you'll find a problem where help is needed, where we could jump on a bandwagon, if you like. And I think it's just a little unfortunate that we've chosen now the Olympic Games to have a go at.
Today, I think if something was to happen, and if I remember my years right, the 72 Olympics, where they were worried about some shootings and some people had said they were going to, you know, blow a bomb up at the Olympics, and they really had to put on heavy security and all that. You know, that's the biggest worry now. You know, will a terrorist group or some other group try to mar the Olympics or, you know, do something like that, take advantage of, you know, the security in that situation? I think that's the biggest worry now about the Olympics. You know, can they keep the athletes safe? I think is the biggest worry.
I feel very strongly about politics. I hate them, and I love sport, and I think all sports people realize that we want to keep the Olympic movement alive. We want to keep sport alive, and therefore we just really dislike all this political talk that's taking place.
Runners, on your marks.
My life has really been, and my husband's and my coach's life has been centered around this goal of attaining the gold medal in Moscow. And so if that goal is taken away from us, then we have nothing to work for right now, and we're still upset about it. We're still frustrated and depressed that it's happened, and right now I can't say what it means to us and how it's going to change my life.
The White House, the bad thing was that they didn't have enough people on one of the entry gates. And so when it surged, there wasn't enough to keep it back. So we weren't just around the White House. We were on the White House lawn.
Yeah,
We were there. We were on the steps. We were next to the columns. We were under the windows. We were around the building. Same thing in Jimmy Carter's house. We didn't, you know, somebody, I don't know who, because I wasn't one of the first ones there, but the gates got open and we flooded through. And we sat around his house. No car was getting in. Nobody was getting out.
Yeah.
And he was in the house. So he was home.
Mm-hmm.
And we just peacefully sat there and wouldn't move. Cars would come up, beep, beep, beep. We just sat there. Dude, you're not going to run me over. I know you're not running me over with your car. You know. And then we slowly got arrested and then released. Mm-hmm. And we all went home.